Welcome back into the Michael Wall Show. I am excited for this show today. We're going to talk about something that is probably one of the most powerful things, if you will stay tuned, listen, and apply, that will absolutely affect your life. We're talking about the biggest secret to achieving your success. This is so important in life because, I think sometimes in life we can get distracted. So, hey, it's time to come on. Hey, everybody, let's come back in. It's time to get back focused on what you're supposed to be doing in life so you can achieve the kind of success that you want to achieve. And I'm going to use some things today that I think are going to be interesting in this show. One is flea training. Did you know that you could train fleas? Well, you can. And oh, by the way, they can help us understand why maybe sometimes we do some things in our own lives. So it's going to be a great show today. I'm really, really excited. Hey, before we jump in, I always like to just take a quick minute and say thank you to not only the sponsors of our show, the folks over at leanonthewall.com, helping us kind of put the studio together and put all the things on necessary, pay our producers, all the things that we do. So appreciative of that. And if you have questions about your finances, about your investments, about tax savings, head over there. 3 companies, Wall Private Wealth, U.S. Private Wealth, Wall Lehman, all designed to help families, institutions, family offices protect, grow, reduce taxes on their wealth, as well as business coaching, executive coaching, et cetera. So a lot of great stuff there, leanonthewall.com. Hey, I know a lot of you have been listening to us via podcast. I know many of you, some of you have reached out to us as well and said, hey, I've been listening, Mike, actually on Alexa. I just say, hey, Alexa, play the Michael Wall Show. And that's awesome. If you want to join us on the YouTube channel, we've been doing video now in the studio for a little while, not too long, but still kind of new. Join us over there. We'd love to have you there, get your feedback, thoughts, and great way to share this content with others. And we're going to be looking for ways to simplify this in the future, by the way. So just kind of like a public service announcement. I think we're going to eventually push everything to michaeldwall.com. We're not ready for that yet, but just be aware of that when that happens. I want to talk about this, though, the biggest secret to achieving your success. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to unwrap here on this show is the idea of really stop focusing on other people and stay in your lane. I'll tell you, we are living in a hypersensitive culture today with all of this stuff going on with media, with politics, with these activist groups, with lobbyists, with riots, with all of these other things. There's so many things happening. And I think it causes a lot of us to say, what in the world is going on? How do I really come through and do all that I'm called to do in life and live my purpose and do all the things that I feel led to do? And I just feel uncertain, right? We can be tossed like the waves in the sea. And so we can forget sometimes that one of the biggest secrets to our own success, to your success, is literally staying in your lane. It's a great verse here that I want to start with this, and it's in Romans, the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know what God's will for you is, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So don't copy the customs or the behaviors of the world, but renew or change your mindset, right? So you can change the way you think and really live out what you've been called to live. And that can be very challenging in our society today because it takes discipline. This is a discipline focusing on our own success. This is a discipline that was challenging in the past. And I think probably one of the biggest reasons in the past it was challenging is because of laziness. We could all be lazy. We can just conform. Of course, the word there says, be not conformed to this world, which means we're constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. We're constantly growing. The challenge with not being conformed is it takes growth, right? It's not easy. Everybody says, to do this and to do that, it's just easier to conform. It's like the Matrix. I know there's a lot of challenges happening out there, but I just want to pretend like things don't exist. Well, what can happen is we can say, hey, I am concerned about this and that and the other thing, and we start to get so overly focused on challenges that exist that we actually forget the challenges that we are actually here to solve. In other words, you were put on this planet, you were put on this earth for a particular purpose. And the sooner you find that out, the sooner you will be in a place where you'll be moving towards your own success. Now, remember I said about the biggest secret is really the secret little, shh, here it is. Stop focusing on other people. Stay in your lane. How in the world would you be able to drive your car if you are totally focused on the car in the lane next to you? Now, maybe if you're driving a Tesla and it's an autopilot, maybe you could do that, right? In our culture today, we have some things we didn't have before. But years ago, wasn't the case. You know, the other thing that happens to us from time to time when we talk about focusing on other people is we can sometimes evaluate, not self-evaluate, but externally evaluate. You know, we kind of say, well, you know, they did this and they did this and they were able to achieve that. And the reason they were is because, you know, they grew up this way, or they grew up on this side of the tracks, or they grew up in this neighborhood, or they had this opportunity, or they had whatever, okay? Well, I want to submit to you the reality that today in our culture, there are people who are successful regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of who they are, because they have just put in the pure work and effort. They were dedicated to the task. I remember when I started my business years ago, we have a couple other companies, and we started it almost 20 years ago now, and in the early 2000s. And one of the things that I remember is our first apartment. It was $400 a month. My wife and I shared a purple Ford Escort, 5-speed, shifter, first gear, second gear. We had a lot of fun with it. But at the end of the day, that's how we started out. She worked at the Outback Steakhouse, didn't make a lot of money, and that's how we started our company. I wasn't given anything. I had to work for everything that we have. And I think that's one of the things that's been lost in our culture today. We're so focused on what other people are doing. We're so focused on what we think other people have that we forget to focus on ourselves. I love this quote. I wrote it down. This is from Earl Nightingale, and he said this. He said, "We can't outgrow the limits we impose on ourselves." Let me say that again. We can't outgrow the limits we impose on ourselves. You might say, Mike, what does that even mean? The limits why would I put limits on myself? Well, you may not intentionally be doing it. The first thing you have to understand is you have what's called a financial blueprint. And I'm going to talk about this on another show because in fact, I had a conversation about this with a younger gentleman the other day. He was asking me some questions, and you have a financial blueprint. In other words, you have a view of money based on how you grew up, based on the situations that you worked through in your life. You have a financial blueprint, right? So you might say, well, maybe achieving this level of success is what I can do, but this, that seems unrealistic. Or maybe just looking at yourself. In other words, the limits that you impose on yourself, you can't outgrow. And I have a copy of my book here. If you haven't picked it up, great book, Retire Once, Retire Well. You got questions, 110 pages, easy read. But let's see what chapter it is. I can't remember. Chapter 4, it's on flea training. And in chapter 4 on flea training, I kind of uncover the reality that you can actually train fleas. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I think it's interesting. Years ago, there was a study done, and what they did is they took fleas, and fleas will bounce. It's like the old joke, at the fleas at the bottom of the hill. They said, would you rather walk or should we take the dog? Now that's one of the jokes that my kids would say, Dad, that's a dad joke. Okay, I get it. But they took fleas. This is true. They took fleas. If you can imagine a jar, one of the glass jar, maybe a glass candy jar or something like that, maybe after you've eaten all the candy out of it, right? You get a glass jar and there's a lid on it. And what they did is they took fleas, literally, and they dumped them, out into this jar and they put the lid on it. Now, what happened over the course of time is these fleas jumped up. And for a little while, they jumped up and started to hit their head on the top. And when you're in a situation where you start to hit your head on something, it hurts. So one of two things either happen. You either continue to jump and hit your head, or you stop. Well, these fleas in this study, what they did is they literally, because they were jumping and hitting their head, they literally stopped jumping just before they would hit their head. Now, interestingly enough, and this is true, you can verify this on your own. Interestingly enough, what happened is they then took the lid off of the jar. So the lid was off, the fleas could jump out, jump to their freedom. They took the lid off of the jar. Guess what happened? The fleas did not jump out of the jar. They literally continued to jump, but they continued to jump just high enough to miss the lid. Then they took it one step further. They actually dumped the fleas out of the jar, got them all out. Fleas are out of the jar on a flat surface. And as those fleas were jumping, guess what happened? They did not jump any higher than the same height as where that lid was. Why? Because they were being conditioned. These self-imposed limits. Now, that jar lid wasn't self-imposed. It was originally imposed by someone else. Somebody put the lid there, that created pain, that caused them to say, ouch, I don't want to jump any higher than that, and therefore that's all the higher they jumped. But then when the lid was removed, there was no lid. Now that height limit was self-imposed because they didn't have a clear perspective of what was happening, or maybe they were operating in fear. So in your life, oftentimes, in my life, at times, we can be in a place where we can be limiting our success because of fear, because of focusing on other people, because of worrying about what other people say. There's many reasons, but these are self-imposed restrictions. And my challenge to you, so that way you can fully live out your success, is to realize that in your life you have had a variety of inputs, from social media to parents to friends to regular traditional media to a variety of other things. You've had things inputted into your mind that are altering or changing or shifting your thought process and the way you look at life, the way you look at the ability for you to achieve success, the way that you look at your ability to grow and do what you need to do. So I want to challenge you as I end this show to focus on your own life. And here's how you do it. Get a white sheet of paper. Get a blank sheet of paper, right? I got some notes on mine right now. So you flip over, get your blank sheet of paper, and you list a couple things. And you be honest with yourself in a quiet room or the quietness of your car. If you have 4 children like I do, you got to get away from your house and your kids to find quiet, okay? But find a quiet area where you can literally say, okay, I need to self-evaluate. And I need to think about whether or not I am imposing limitations on myself. And that can start with something simple like, why do you believe what you believe? What is success to you? What does it really mean? Is it buying a $200 million yacht and living in a $50 million house on Palm Beach? Is it, or in Hollywood? Or is that success to you? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Is it making sure that you can touch as many lives as possible and encourage as many people as you possibly can? What is success to you? What does it look like? There may be several different phases of success, but find out what that is. So number 1, are you putting any self-imposed things on yourself? Number 2, what is success? And then number 3, what are some things that you need to change? Some of your daily habits that are actually aiding or adding more weight onto some of the imposed limitations that you put on your life. As an example, if you wake up every day and as you wake up, you're in a place where, you're like, okay, I got to find out what's going on in life. So you start reading the news, you start looking at your news feeds, you start getting on social media, whatever it is. Okay, you're listening to music that might have negative connotations. Whatever your life looks like. How do you start your day? What are your daily habits? What are some of the things that you need to get rid of so you can have a clean mind? And what are some things that you need to add in so you can improve your thought process, so you can improve your belief in what you can do? There's been a lot of psychological experiments done about the environment of the mind and how powerful that it is in either keeping you from or pushing you towards success. Now, I'm going to unpack that a little bit more in a future show. But on today's show, my challenge for you is to really unpack the secret with me of success. And that biggest secret is stop focusing on other people and really start to focus on you so you can grow into all that you've been called to be. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to this show, make sure you do that if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're not watching it on YouTube, I want to invite you really to join us there. And make sure you hit the notification bell so that way you can stay up to date with the little things we might be sending out. I'm so excited for you as you grow in life. And do me a favor, share this show with someone that needs to hear it. I know you have 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 10 or more folks in your text message thread, friends that need to hear this show. They need to be encouraged. And share this on social media so that way your crew, your people that you interact with there socially can be benefiting from this kind of advice and information as well. As we all come together and rally around this type of internal, reflective thoughts, really, it helps us all to move down towards our purpose. As you know, my goal for you is so that way you can live on purpose, live with purpose, and live on purpose in your life. All right? That's my desire. That's my goal for you. I hope you've been blessed. Love your feedback. Share your comments and thoughts below as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next show.